Hi everyone, Matt Sorensen from SpineFit here with our stretching segment. Something was going on with the links before, so there's a good chance I'm in the wrong room. Either way, you'll get this recording and hopefully you can get some value out of it anyway. So, hope you all had a great weekend. Mine was a very busy weekend helping someone move. And this week, for the next 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be on a program that I've written myself, where it essentially means I'm going to train 9 times a week. So I'll be training Monday, Wednesday, Friday, AM, PM, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, AM only, and Sunday completely off, not doing a thing on Sundays. And what that really does is going to overtrain my body. At that time period, I then give myself 5 to 7 days off where I will stretch or I will do some active recovery, be it surfing or hiking or whatever my body tells me to really do. But we're really, at the moment, we're sticking with the theme of stretching. And while we're here, I'm going to share a slide that I've got. Here for you. This is in a workshop I did ages and ages ago. So here we have what's called the RC factor. Just got to get the right size of it. So here we have the RC factor. Now this was discovered by a chiropractor back in 1960 something by the name of Major Bertrand Dejarnet, and he came up with this RC factor, which is really, wherever you see a C and an R, the C stands for contraction, the R stands for resistance. So wherever there is a contraction of a muscle on one side of the joint, there needs to be equal and opposite resistance to counterbalance that pulley. So muscles act kind of like pulleys on bones. So you have the muscles, the nerves that control the muscles, you have the muscles that control the bones, and the bones house the nerves typically. So it's a triangle or a circle, however that works for you. So here you can see in this picture, this is a typical posture of what you would probably, a middle distance runner. This is a very typical posture for them, where the forward head posture, the depressed sternum, the shortened upper abdominals, the tight lower back, the tight hip flexors. Often you get a hyperextended knee accompanying this position. So what I'm going to really take you through today is how to stretch the top bit of that. We did a little bit last week on the hip flexors and a little bit on the neck and the pecs. They are really important muscles because in this posture here, you see when we depress the manubrium of the sternum, we're actually pushing the rib cage down, stretching the first rib, increasing the length of the scalene muscles. And we have a lot of nerves, a lot of neurology, a lot of vasculature running through from the neck over the first rib, under the clavicle, feeding down into the arm. So you can get a lot of pins and needles, a lot of carpal tunnel is actually thoracic outlet or thoracic inlet syndromes. But what this posture here shows you is when you depress the sternum, you actually contract and compress the diaphragm, which is the most important muscle of the body. It's the only muscle that works 24/7, and it's innervated. Typically, muscles are innervated by 1, 2, sometimes 5 or 6 different segments of the spine. Well, the diaphragm is innervated by 16 segments of the spine. So it's the major circuit. When you short circuit the diaphragm, you certainly know about it because you literally take your breath away. So it's one of the most important muscles to stretch. And when it's tight, it pulls you forward. A lot of people just stretch up here, not really paying attention to down here. When this part of me is depressed, pushed downwards, that creates tension in the upper neck, as you see in this diagram. You have what's called an upper cross syndrome and a lower cross syndrome. Upper cross syndrome is really tight muscles in the suboccipitals here. So it's short and tight up here, long and weak at the front of the neck. You have long and weak at the upper back muscles, the rhomboids, upper trap, sometimes mid trap, and you have short and tight in the pecs here. So you have a upper cross syndrome. When you have an upper cross syndrome, they typically have babies, and they're called lower cross syndrome, is what you see here, with short and tight, long and weak, and long and weak. So the best way to correct that is to stretch the short and tight and strengthen the long and weak. So I'm going to show you how to stretch these muscles here and one for the lower back. I should say that if you do feel pain bending forward, be really, really careful doing what I'm going to show you tonight, but I'll talk you through how to do that as safely as possible. So I'll get rid of that. That's a posture 101 for you. So here now, what we're really going to do is stretch everything from here and here. Now, remember I said last week, to stretch a muscle, you have to separate the origin and insertion of a muscle. So every muscle has an origin and insertion. So for example, the suboccipitals typically go from the atlas to the occiput in a oblique angle. So a way we can do that is by getting the chin in a pistol grip. And what I'm going to do with the chin is put myself in what's called retrusion of the cranium. So as I'm going to put retrusion through the cranium, I'm going to lift up towards the roof. And I'm going to hold a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As I relax that, I'm going to push a little bit more and pull a little bit more with this hand. And that gets a nice stretch up through the back of the neck. I'm not supposed to be talking while I do this, because every time I talk, my jaw moves. My jaw is locked into my atlas. The atlas is the most sublux joint in the human body, and it's the goalkeeper to the brain. And anyone with a atlas subluxation often will typically feel symptoms either in the shoulder, hip, lower back, sometimes knee. Typical atlas subluxation is pain down the one side of the body, or tightness down the one side of the body. That's typical indication of an atlas subluxation, as it has ligaments called denticulate ligaments that attach directly into the spinal cord. When it's rotated, it creates a rotational torque through the spinal cord, and in an attempt to protect your spinal cord, because it's kind of a big deal, you injure that, you certainly know about it, and it's very detrimental to a lot of goals out there. Your body will adapt and do whatever it needs to do. Distort posture, it will rotate, bend, translate, shift, do whatever it needs to, and even shorten a leg up in an attempt to keep your head level with the horizon. And that goes back to primal days for survival reasons. So stretching the suboccipitals is really important, because most people who work at a desk are typically in this position. So short, tight upper neck, long, weak, deep cervical flexor muscles, short, tight pecs and upper abs, and long and weak rhomboids, upper thoracic. So when we stretch that out, we automatically become taller. When we open this up, we get taller. And when we strengthen this and open this, you can see how my posture's improved already. Now, it's very common for guys to just want to bench press, push up, sit up, bicep curl. They're only doing the front side of the body, which is fine. But unless that's counterbalanced by strengthening the back and opening up the front, will you avoid this kind of posture? So going down the line, stretching the suboccipitals, ideally you wouldn't talk like I'm doing, but you get the point. Next we have levator scap, which goes from C1, 2, 3, 4, attaches down to the top of the scapula. So you find the stretch, you find the direction of the muscle. So I'm not sure if you can see that proper, goes down that way. And I can take this arm, push it away, and just find that 8 out of 10 intensity. Any more, you start putting more stress on the body. Your body doesn't mind being tight, but as long as it's symmetrically tight, then that's far less stress for the body. So first I'll gauge that so I can get that far out of 10, or that 5 degrees, and that side's pretty level. I'll feel a bit more at the front here. So to even that out, I'm going to stretch these muscles here. So I'm going to take my left shoulder, reach for the ground. I'm going to try to look over my right shoulder, which actually stretches my scalenes and my sternocleidomastoid, which if I do that, you can kind of see that way, which goes from the clavicle up to the mastoid process just behind the ear there. So I'm going to stretch that out, doing the same tempo as what I'm normally doing. And I'm going to hold that 3 to 5 seconds, do that 3 to 5 times. So I'm getting a stretch, a contract, relax stretch. So I'm telling my brain to give more length to the muscle without sedating the actual nervous system. If I hold this for 30 seconds or more, then I'm actually sedating the nervous system. I'm giving length to the muscle, but as I sedate the nervous system, I'm not getting myself ready for exercise. So if I'm going to hold for 30 seconds or more, then that's the stretch I'm going to do, probably ideally just before bed or somewhere in the PM for that. So next we're going to go this part. Now, this can be tricky. We've got limited space here, so bear with me. We're just going to start with the chest. So the pec minor runs from, if you push your shoulder forward, you'll feel a little bump right there. That's the coracoid process, which is actually the front of the scapula. The pec minor runs from coracoid process to ribs 3, 4, and 5. It kind of does that. And it's the muscle that pulls you that way. So anyone with a posture that's hunched like this typically need that muscle opened up. So I'm going to get my trusty Swiss ball here that's way too small. As I explained last week, not my fault. I'm going to bring my edge up here until I feel a really sharp stretch just there. I might feel it through here, which is the pec major that runs over the top. But typically I only want to feel it close to my shoulder. The further I go this way, the more pec major I'm getting. But wherever you're feeling it is where you feel it. So I can go on a range of different angles here. And as soon as I find that spot that's just where I want it, I can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to breathe out, then sink down towards the ground. My shoulders are coming together at the back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back down. And again, I'm going to do that 3 to 5 times. If I'm tighter on this side than this side, I might do 5 on this side, 3 on this side. Or if I'm significantly tighter on one side than the other, I'm going to do just this side and not that side. So stretching out all of these, I'll be 6'5" by the end of it. With the pec stretch, when you pull up against a door, if you go too hard, the anterior capsule of the shoulder will open up. You have 2 communication portals at the front. When they get stretched, it tells the brain that your arm's going to rip off. So it actually tightens the ligamentous capsules up. You've got 4 major ligaments touching in and around the shoulder, and they all tighten up in an attempt to try and save your shoulder. So that is how, I'll get this back up. somehow, it won't let me do it. So that you can see how doing those stretches will help open up. Now, when I do exercises to strengthen my neck, to give my thoracic extensors more tone, then you can see how that's going to get me a lot straighter in alignment. So when we are in that posture like this, what's really happening is we're decreasing our respiratory function by sometimes up to a third. When we decrease our respiratory function up to a third, what's typically going to happen is that you'll start breathing through your mouth a lot more. When you breathe through your mouth a lot more, you become more and more acidic. When you become more and more acidic, you go into something similar happens when you eat too much sugar. You promote what's called acidosis, which means you go more acidic. When you go more acidic, you promote more and more inflammation. So if you promote more and more inflammation just through breathing and posture, then your aches and pains will likely never really properly heal themselves. So the last stretch for this part isn't really a stretch, it's more of an activation. So we've stretched out the front and the back of the neck. All we're going to do now is get our hands on the bottom of our diaphragm. And the diaphragm is supposed to move in 3 directions, 3 dimensions. So we want to go back to front, side to side, and slightly up and down. But when we breathe in, we want the diaphragm to go down. The pelvic floor comes up and creates a non-compressible cylinder that's actually designed to protect your spine. Your spine won't be protected if this hydraulic amplifier mechanism isn't working. So this is why we stretch for posture. So when we get the diaphragm going, we can these are more for feedback. So I'm going to try and really exaggerate this breath. So I'm pushing out to the side. That itself is a stretch. Now, most people that come to me with orthopedic injuries have a dysfunctional breathing pattern, which means it's inverted. So they breathe like that. Now, when you breathe with your neck, you're actually tightening the neck up. When you breathe like this, you're allowing the neck to have a rest. The muscles in the neck have more of a postural function. When you breathe like that and activate the neck muscles, you're actually giving them more of a phasic or movement style loading. So they actually react to faulty loading by tightening up. When these tighten up, it brings you forward. You stop breathing through your nose, breathe through your mouth, you get more oxygen in through your mouth, but you don't filter the air going through the turbinates in the nose, going through the canal, going into the lungs. And you actually promote more and more acidity, which tightens muscles, and it doesn't allow your spine to pump itself. When you do correct diaphragmatic breathing, you promote what's called the osmoplasmic flow up and down the spinal cord. To give you an example of what that looks like in real time and real life, picture seaweed in a current just sort of doing that. But as it does that, it kind of moves gently, and it does 8 to 12 resolutions each minute. So when we don't breathe through our ribs and through our diaphragm, that pumping system turns off. So then the pain, the toxicity, the scar tissue, the aggravation, the inflammation in the back gets stuck and stagnant. Over time, your body senses instability, so it deposits more and more tissue. And that's why we can get Dowager's humps. That's why we can get inflammation and excess bone, essentially, on the lower back. And that's how a lot of vertebrae can fuse together. On the opposite spectrum, because we're locked up through the rib cage and thoracic, we can't rotate properly. The hip flexors will tighten up, and when we go to bend forward, when we go to step forward, that pulls us into anterior pelvic tilt, which locks the facets up in the lower back, which actually stops rotation. So if you do a lot of hammering or throwing or anything with your arms, then if that rotation has stopped, then you'll overuse the shoulder for lack of compensation of movement in the back. So when that moves, this shouldn't. When that doesn't move, this will. So here we're going to iron out all the natural bodies, just natural compensations from that. Now, last week I took you through a hip flexor stretch. Today I'm going to show you a hamstring stretch. Just due to the room I've got, I'll see the best I can do. So I'm going to show you a standing hamstring stretch. Now, if you do get pain bending forward, be very, 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 very careful of doing this. If you find relief in bending forward, then this is usually okay. If you do have pain bending forward, then you're going to really have to be conscious of keeping a natural curve in your lower back. So I'll show you what that looks like. So that is a natural curve in my lower back. So what I'm going to do, I'll try and do this best I can. So there you can see the curve in my back. Now, as I bend forward, I'm going to keep a slight 20-degree-ish bend in my knees. As soon as I lock my knees out, I lock my pelvis up. When I go forward, my pelvis will stay back and my spine will open up, exposing discs typically going this way backwards. When I go forward, the discs move that way. When I go that way, the disc goes that way. So I'm going to keep a good posture, everything in neutral. And I'm just going to go bend forward like a waiter till I get there. There's my stretch. Now I've got a slight bend in the knees, bending forward. Now what I can do from here, if that's enough, then that's fine. If I want to add to the stretch, I can hold my hands out, hold a plate out as I'm a waiter. If I'm feeling pain bending forward, I really want to get as much arch in that back as I can. If not, neutral it is. What I'm going to do is take my hands out. The further forward my hands go out, the more of the pull I get in the hamstring insertion right up on the sit bones in my butt. So I can go further and further out and get more and more of a stretch. If that's not enough and that feels good to you, what you can do then is start slowly bringing your knees back to get more of the distal portion of the hamstring. That said, it puts a lot of pressure through here. The further I take my hands out, the more it will pull on my lower back. So first you need to qualify yourself to prescribe that stretch. Most people will have, if they have a scoliosis or a torsion, a rotational torsion of some sort, they'll have tightness in the right hip flexor and left hamstring or butt, as an example. It could be the other way around, but you get the point. If someone has a disc bulge in the early stages and they have pain going forward, you're more better going backwards. So you'll get more relief by probably not doing that stretch, okay? You'll probably get more relief strengthening these hip flexors to give you more of a curve. There's a good chance that these are already overactive. So again, if you're going forward, keep that arch in the lower back. To get a nerve stretch, this is kind of getting advanced now, but I'll do it because I'm here. To get more of a nerve stretch, you can go forward and let the lower back just round out naturally. If you get pain or if you start to feel sick, stop immediately. That's tension on the nervous system. So you can go forward, and I'm going to try and hyperextend my knees. And what I can do is just let my head drop, which stretches out the entire central nervous system through the spine. Now, anyone with typically spondylolisthesis, sometimes with inflamed facet joints, spondylitis. Anytime canal stenosis, these conditions will typically give relief in that position. When you have a grade 1 or 2 disc bulge, this will likely irritate it. So you will have to go the other way in an attempt to get the disc back there. So there's some stretches for you. I hope you guys are motivated coming into this Christmas stretch. If there's one bit of kind of motivation, what I tell my clients is that most people, when they go to the gym, when they go see a trainer, and let's just say they might have a mindset of I'll go to the gym for a couple of hours a week, and let's say it's 3 hours a week, you might see a trainer, and that will give you a license to do and eat whatever else that you want to do or eat. But the reality of it is that there's 168 hours in a week. If you go to the gym or exercise 3 times, there's still 165 odd hours left in the week. So no matter what your pain is, whether it's getting out of pain, losing weight, getting strength, toning, whatever it is, remember there's a battle and a war going on. Now, going to the gym, seeing the trainer, the coach, the therapist for an hour or so at a time, that's certainly helping, but you've still got 165 hours to undo everything you've done with the trainer or the therapist or whoever. Now, the battles are won. The battles are in the gym with the trainer or the therapist. The war is outside. The war is at home. The war is at work. The war is in your day-to-day life. Now, when we have that mindset, and I work with this all the time, when you have the mindset of I can do this and then I can, if you take a multivitamin, then I can eat and do whatever I want. Well, that's kind of a false premise. And that's very pointed, compartmentalized way of looking at things. When you open yourself up to a holistic approach to any condition, be it physical pain, it can be mental, emotional as well. For example, you could use a certain supplement to achieve a certain level, but it could come at the cost of a relationship. It can come at the cost of your liver, and it can change your life forever. When you really master multiple aspects of not only training, but life itself, that's when we're going to see more records being broken, more timelines being shattered. In other words, your doctor will say, take 12 weeks off your given sport because you've got a insert condition here. Well, when you look at that holistically and think, well, where am I out of balance? What do I need to eat? What do I need to drink? How much water am I drinking? How much sleep am I getting? How much repair? How much am I laying the right conditions for my body to heal? Your body wants to heal all the time. If given the right conditions, it will. So there's always going to be one-hit wonders. So someone who got better for a little bit, but then screwed it all up. Now, most people, unfortunately, have a very pointed view on, be it therapy, be it, really life in general. When you open yourself up and give yourself every opportunity to heal, and if you need to lay off alcohol for a while, lay off alcohol for a while. If you need to quit sugar for a while, quit sugar for a while, at least for a time where you can build up that buffer again to absorb the impact. If you follow what I call the 80-20 rule, which is if you're healthy, 80% of the time, you can handle the 20% that you're not. Now, if you're going to spend more time than the 20%, think of your body as a garden. If you're a good gardener, then your garden looks good from Monday to Friday. You can handle the odd party on the weekend. If you're continually having parties in the garden, you're going to ruin the garden. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people's pain looks like, if you understand the metaphor. So I hope that helps. Please send through any questions and requests, and I can go through them a lot more thorough next time. And I hope you guys got a lot out of that. I will see you next week.